What's going on, fellas? Welcome back. Beller Baller here, another RLCS Pro breakdown. Today we got Stizzy, Spanish sensation. How's that for a little alliteration? Stizzy played on a couple of rosters last season. Neither of them really reached the peak that some people thought they might. Started out the season really strong. If you remember last fall with Aogiri, that roster shocked Oxygen right off the bat. First game of the season, and people were like, uh-oh, maybe this Stizzy guy's up next. Maybe this roster is something that, you know, could pick up another piece and really contend. And eventually they got picked up by Monaco Esports, and the results kind of went away. Not that the results were ever really there, but, you know, they didn't progress how you thought they would. The sponsorship kind of seemed to bite him in the butt a little bit. But hey, last season is last season. Now Stizzy's got a new roster, certainly the biggest opportunity that he's had in his young career so far, teaming alongside AtomiK with a K, fellow Spaniard, and Tox, a player who I am a massive fan of, who spent last season on a duo that I just can't quit, guys. Ivan and Catalysm. Any other player that they pick up, I'll be like, oh, yep. But I digress. So all three of those players, really talented, have been around the scene for a second. Stizzy's certainly the newest. But, you know, AtomiK I've talked about as one of the best strikers in the RLCS. You know, there's some other holes in his game that, you know, kind of hold him back a little bit. And then Tox, just all around, super solid player. I've liked him on basically every roster he's been on. And now Stizzy is coming in as this X Factor, you know, getting this big opportunity to see what he can do. And I want to spend a little bit of time in the next video as Zen was just gross on that double. Let's check this out real quick, why don't we? Ceiling, backboard, good night. Yeah, so actually before I continue on that tangent I was about to go on, this is against Vitality. If you haven't seen yet, they won a world championship, pretty good, and this is game 3 elimination game here, if they can't win it, against Vitality for Monaco Esports, which was Dying, who is a good young player, as Stizzy gets a nice little fake on the goal line for a goal there, and Asolon, who was with Stizzy for the duration of last season. Dying came in instead of VK Salen. But back to Stizzy. How about we talk a little bit of stats here for a second. Who is Stizzy? You know, we watch him, we know him, we see the highlights, but on average, what kind of player is he? Only 97 games, so not a huge sample size. For reference, Carmine Core is like just a pinch under 300 from last season, so saw a lot more of those players than we have here. Stizzy with a nice dish out for the transition goal as I talk. Above a 1 rating, so he's right around players like Lost, Joria's, Chicago, pretty good company. And I would say that his most outstanding stats are certainly he's a good savior, above 2 saves per game. And to tie up this segment, because it's not very interesting to hear me say numbers, above average as a goal scorer, but nothing ridiculous, and above average as a shooting percentage, which, as you all know, is a combination that I love. If you score a lot and score with efficiency, it means you're a pretty good offensive player. Could definitely go about becoming just a more intentional passer. His assist numbers aren't great, and in watching film, he definitely, a lot of assists just seem to be, you know, his teammates just finishing off his plays, or kind of like almost like, yeah, I meant to do that passes. Not really a great, you know, great field vision when looking for his teammates on the offensive end. But, you know, every player can progress, and he's definitely going to have an opportunity to improve that stat alongside AtomiK, who is just a fiend. He scores so much, he shoots so often, and that's really the thing that I'm interested to see with this new roster is what are they trying to do with themselves, because AtomiK came from G1, and it was basically, you know, in a lot of settings it could become kind of a one-man show. I don't think that's great. even with the scorer's gift as him, you definitely want to, be able to pass the ball around a little bit. And I felt G1 looked best when they had Oli and Dorito really, especially Dorito popping off at, I think that was what, the winter major, spring major. And I feel like that's what they need Stizzy to do, because Tox is coming from a situation where it's really, turtle up on defense. You just look for really great counter shots every once in a while, and just hope that you can beat a lot of teams 2-1-1-0. So AtomiK and Tox are coming from very different play styles, and the two games that we're going to look at today, one's from the Winter Invitational, and this is from the Spring Invitational, so a very informed Vitality here that they're putting up a close fight against. But it's going to show Stizzy in two different play styles. This one was a little more reserved, finish off plays, good spacing, keep boosting the tank. In the Winter Invitational, we saw just a different version of Stizzy, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. So yeah, what is Stizzy going to add to this duo? Is he going to be a second banana, off scorer? Is he going to be in the forefront, just really going for it? Are they going to try and unlock him and, play around him? I think that's going to mean a lot for the success of this roster, whether or not they want Stizzy to be, the front man, or, and if so, how much are they going to actually commit to that play style, as Alpha is just going to absolutely crush on that there. So let's transition into our second game here. This is against BDS, Winter Invitational, playoffs. So this is, BDS needs this, right? Remember, this is, still the extra roster. This was like the tournament to see if they were going to make a major or not. Spoiler alert, they end up not making the major. But do they fall to Monaco Esports? I guess we'll have to wait and find out. In this game, we're going to see Stizzy a lot more up-tempo, a lot more not really he's seeking out boost. He always needs to have boost because he's wasting it so quickly, and they are really, his teammates, Aslan and VK Salen, in a lot of situations, are just clearing out. Make space, Stizzy, what do you got? And they're just kind of live off of that. And they're definitely looking to like muck it up against BDS. They're all over them. They know that they don't have the same level of talent or mechanical skills. They're trying to speed them up, go quick, make it ugly, and they succeed in quite a few situations in this game here. So Stizzy, he's one of those players where it's kind of tough to know what our expectations for him should be. I'm a big NBA fan, as you guys know, and with a lot of rookies, you temper your expectations, right? First season, what are you going to get? You're going to have to improve on some things, but it's kind of not the same in the RLCS. I mean, Zen is an excellent example of that, right? Comes in, hasn't lost a single event the entire time, won a major, wins a world championship, and just off the rip. We've seen some other prodigies too, but it's one of those things where players can come in and just drastically change how good they are in a really quick manner. I mean, a name that comes to mind for me, and it's different than Stizzy or Zen, is Hoxer, right? Where kind of seemed like we figured out what he was going to be contributing at the top level, and then just a new situation and some renewed focus, he becomes one of the standout players from the World Championship. And to tie a bow back to Stizzy, I think it means something that he was a player who his rosters never really saw, big success, like never massive wins or huge results or anything like that. But the reason that I wanted to highlight these two games is they're both incredibly close situations where Stizzy is the fulcrum point for his team against, big time teams. And I think it's important, if you're a young player and on a roster that's kind of unproven and maybe not as talented as the top brass, to be able to hang around in games like this. I think that means a lot to the player that you are unlocking, and in this case that is Stizzy all over the place. So the fact that Stizzy has been able to hang around against big competition like this is something that means a lot, especially when we have some players on some new rosters that haven't really seen any success. I think about the situation that we're seeing right now with Nas, who's never made a main event before, and he's just become the third along, you know, a massive duo signing of AJ and Joria's. So, and here's Stizzy, ready for this? Reset and transition, just crushes that one. And that's kind of that unlock from Stizzy, right? This is, you know, before they kind of, he got a little more, you know, situated and things like that. They were just like, hey man, go for it if you're feeling it, you know. Full field reset off the double. But, you know, Nas is somebody who's never made a main event. And Stizzy is somebody who, you know, I kind of gave some flack. Oh my gosh. The side read double, full field, top right. Marvelous. But, you know, I kind of faulted him for the results. And now that I'm thinking about it, you know, maybe that's not something that you should totally hold against him. Especially with the RLCS being so cutthroat with some of the formats and things like that. I think individual performance and just kind of what you look like is in some senses more important than results, specifically online. Once you get to lands, I think performance, every game should be scrutinized way more. But, you know, here, as long as you're having good performances, I think that's important. Great defense on Monkey Moon right there. But yeah, I'm excited for Stizzy and to see what he's, you know, going to add up to. Because there was a second there where I was buying some stock. I was like, hey man, this Stizzy guy, I'm all in. I think he could be, you know, one of the next great players in EU alongside somebody like Smokes. And both of them have a lot to prove this season because they didn't continue to improve. They had a hot streak, but then kind of flamed out. And I'm going to talk about the overtime as we get into it here. But yeah, another element is, you know, I already mentioned it briefly, but I definitely like the talent more with Tox and AtomiK than I have previously. Not to fault these guys, it's more of a compliment to Tox and AtomiK, but you know, something that is important to me is I don't really know Stizzy as a person and what leadership qualities or how he'll fit in alongside these players. And I think that this Magnifico roster is one that can and should anticipate making majors. So we're going to get to learn a lot about him and how he kind of falls into the fold there. But I've always been a little leery of AtomiK's expressive nature and how it might affect his teammates. But, you know, hey, everybody can grow. And yeah, let's talk about this overtime a little bit. So a lot of boomer ball, boom ball from Monaco Esports here. They're just trying to get rid of it. And it's going to end up biting him in the butt. Something that has stood out about Stizzy's gameplay is sometimes he can try and get a little too fancy. I mean, that would have been sick. If he would have got the catch and then kind of had the reset, could have done something nasty to win the game. But down the stretch here, we're going to see a couple situations where it's like, hey man, maybe something a little simpler. And here, you know, they're really kind of tripping over each other. And that's something that stood out quite a bit in the replays was, it might not be him, right? Maybe it's his teammates, but communication seems to, these teams trip over themselves a lot more than standard teams, and maybe that's a point of focus for Stizzy. But again, we can't hear that, so who knows? All right, so Stizzy's gonna control here, and this is the spot I'm talking about where it kind of just turns the ball into nowhere, and now is running back. They kind of all get stuck, and this is where the championship caliber of BDS is going to show. Monkey Moon's just going to take this over the top, get the dunk, extra slot, and that's the game. So both of these were losses, but I felt like Stizzy was incredibly impressive in both, especially as an offensive threat, especially as somebody to protect on the defensive end. I'm excited to see what this roster looks like moving forward. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I will catch you all again in the near future. Okay, toodles, guys.